could have. Heat flooded her face and she looked away, ashamed. She'd spent so long pretending she wasn't frightened of being alone, pretending she wasn't broken by loss, pretending she was strong enough to keep standing when the world kept shifting beneath her. Rowan's gaze remained steady. "I'm not here to harm you," he said. "Fear's nothing to hide. Most just won't speak it out loud." Ilara swallowed and risked a glance at him. His expression held no mockery, only a quiet understanding that unsettled her more than any anger would have. "I've had to be careful," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "People judge quickly." Rowan's jaw tightened slightly, as though he recognized that truth. "Then you'll find no judgment here. Only work and quiet. If you're all right with that, you can stay." Ilara exhaled, the breath shaky. She nodded, still unsure of how to stand in a place where she wasn't immediately unwelcome. The wind rattled softly against the window, and for the first time in months, she felt something like possibility take root inside her chest. As night gathered across the sky, Rowan showed her to a small room at the back of the house. The bed was plain. The quilt faded, but it was hers, and no sneer or whisper lurked at its edges. When he left her to rest, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her trembling hands, until they slowly stilled. She lay down and closed her eyes, uncertain of what tomorrow might bring, but held by the quiet promise of a place where she didn't have to pretend, at least not tonight. Outside, the last threads of daylight disappeared, and the ranch settled into silence, holding the memory of Rowan's words in the dark. Morning came with soft light spilling through thin curtains, casting stripes across the wooden floor of Ilara's small room. She rose before the rooster crowed, her habit formed from years of working in silence to avoid drawing scorn. She smoothed the quilt, tied back her hair, and stepped into the main room where the smell of coffee lingered faintly in the air. Rowan was already outside, tending to the horses. Through the window, she saw his steady movements, checking hooves, fastening straps, brushing dust from coats with a patience that seemed carved into his bones. Ilara brewed a fresh pot of coffee and fried what little bacon remained in the larder. When Rowan entered, wiping his hands on a cloth, his brows lifted slightly at the sight of breakfast. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Ilara shrugged, unsure of the rules in his house. It needed doing. He poured himself a mug and nodded once in quiet appreciation. They ate in companionable silence, the kind that didn't strain or suffocate. After breakfast, Ilara gathered sheets from the small rooms and carried them to the basin near the pump. As she scrubbed the fabric with lye soap, the cold water numbed her fingers, but the work kept her thoughts from spiraling. Rowan passed by now and then, carrying tools or hay, offering brief directions when needed. He never hovered, never raised his voice, and never looked at her like she was intruding on his peace. Days fell into a rhythm. Ilara mended curtains, dusted shelves, and polished the old oak table until it gleamed faintly in the sunlight. Rowan repaired fences, tended cattle, and spent long hours riding the perimeter of the land. At dusk, she'd watch him return, coated in dust and sweat, shoulders tired but unbowed. Some evenings, they'd exchange a few words about the day, the weather, the condition of the horses, the approaching storms, but mostly they shared the silence like an understanding neither needed to name. Yet even as comfort crept in, Ilara's fear never fully disappeared. It lingered beneath her ribs, a quiet tremor reminding her of every time she'd trusted someone and been left bruised by their disappointment. Rowan noticed things, her flinch when footsteps came too fast, the way she stood near walls as though to guard her back, the stiffness in her shoulders when a door closed too sharply. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the pasture, he found her sweeping the porch with a worn broom. She startled when he stepped onto the boards, her grip tightening until her knuckles whitened. Rowan paused a few feet away, giving her space. "You don't have to jump every time I walk by," he said softly. Ilara lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry. It's not you. It's habit." The wind curled between them, carrying the scent of sage and pine. Rowan set a gloved hand on the porch railing. "I meant what I said before. You don't have to pretend you're not afraid. Not here." Ilara's throat tightened. "Fear makes people think you're weak, and weakness invites trouble." Rowan shook his head slightly. Fear means you've endured something that taught you caution. There's no shame in surviving. His voice held no pity, only a truth that eased something tense inside her. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever fear anything?" Rowan's eyes drifted toward the horizon, where the grass swayed beneath the setting sun. "Everyone fears something. Mine just isn't people. It's losing what little peace I've earned after all the years it took to find it." Ilara studied him, the lines of quiet strength in his face, the calm in his eyes that came not from ease but endurance. For the first time, she spoke a piece of her past aloud. "My mother died when I was young. My father did his best, but after he passed, I was sent to people who wanted servants, not family. They said I was lucky they took me in, but luck shouldn't feel like walking on broken glass." Rowan's jaw clenched, but his voice remained, "Then I'm sorry fate brought you that kind of luck. You deserve better." The words wrapped around her like a blanket she didn't expect, warming the cold corners of her memory. She looked up, meeting his gaze fully for the first time without fear of what she might find there. There was no threat, only quiet respect and an understanding forged from different hurts carried in the same silence. As twilight deepened, fireflies flickered near the fields. Rowan stepped back, giving her room to finish sweeping. "Supper in half an hour," he said. "I'll bring in wood for the stove." Ilara nodded, and when he disappeared around the corner of the house, she found her hands had stopped trembling. The night settled gentle across the ranch as stars kindled in the sky. After supper, Rowan sat by the hearth, mending a bridle strap while Ilara knitted beside the window. The quiet between them no longer felt like a gulf but a shared space where neither had to prove anything. Before retiring to her room, she paused at the doorway and glanced back at him. He didn't look up, but he spoke as though he sensed her lingering. "You're safe here. Ilara, you don't need to earn that by pretending you're not scared." Her eyes stung and she whispered, "Thank you." When she lay in bed that night, the fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her breathing. It sat beside something new, trust, tentative and small but growing like grass after rain. And though she did not yet understand what the future held, she knew this. She no longer trembled alone. Rowan fought battles in silence and she in shadows. But in that house of worn wood and wild land, they were no longer strangers to their own truths. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful love stories full of heart, healing, and unforgettable characters, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more stories to life. Don't miss the next one.